What is going on? Hope we're all good. Hope we all have a decent bank holiday. Time to get back to work properly though. Yesterday was relatively decent. We saw a couple of entries come into play. Pound dollar, euro dollar, New Zealand dollar all came good with entries in the end. Dollar CAD looks like it's setting up this morning quite nicely. And obviously there are other entries that we can look to take. Euro Swiss, New Zealand dollar. There are a few different pairs that are presenting us with opportunities this morning. So, Euro USD. We were always anticipating some form of a retracement this week, early doors. That made perfect sense after the push that we saw on Friday. Drive to the downside. We've come back up. We pushed. We came as high as 2080, which was probably a little bit higher than we were expecting, but we did have that room to go to 121 should we need to, and still be in line with what we were looking to see. But we saw perfect rejection away from the region that we were looking to trade below. So we had the potential to get involved at 2050. For those that did, obviously, we are now trading around about 20 pips to the good, 30 pips to 35 pips to the good, 30 pips somewhere around there, depending on where your entry was, whether you used a pen in order to get involved. But the main thing is that we're trading in profit. Our next entry, the next planned entry point that we can possibly look to take would be a break of the lows at 120. Obviously, 120.10 is the last previous swing low that we have seen. Given the amount of times that this area is held though, it would probably make sense to wait for 119.90 to be taken out before we actually look for a possible entry on the pair. Just giving it that little bit extra buys us that little bit of peace of mind that we're probably unlikely to get caught in a false breakout situation, especially after the pushes and moves that we saw last week. Obviously, coming into this week, we still have major fundamentals in play. We still have NFP results, early data coming out on Wednesday, then obviously on Friday. We also have obviously non-farm, the official non-farm payroll changes. That, as always, is going to cause major movements in the market. It always does. It's going to be no different now. We can expect to see huge moves in the market as a result of it. Now, when we actually look at those potential movements and what we do have lining up and what we could potentially be seeing, obviously, we've had a lot of positive data come out of the US. There are, however, very optimistic is the word that I'm looking for, expectations for NFP this month. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see them fall short of that. And therefore, obviously, the dollar to take a little bit of a hit late on Friday. Hopefully, we can be well and truly in profit across our positions, though, and we won't need to particularly worry about that. We can take profit and just avoid trading through the non-farm payroll data at all costs. So, if you managed to get involved in Euro USD from around about 2050, then happy days. If not, then like I say, we do have a potential entry at 119.90. Once we're clear of all this noise at 120, we should see a pretty good drop back down towards that 118.80 region that we have been looking for. Sticking with the euro, I want to look at Euro CAD and Euro Swiss. Euro Swiss, we have just been floating around really. We've clearly found some support at 190 at 109.80. So that's the level that we need to clear. Obviously, we already had that 75 region highlighted. So we're going to wait for that to go before looking for potential short positions as things stand. Obviously, we failed to break the previous highs here at 110, 110.10. We were always looking for this pullback into 110.15, 110.10, somewhere around that area, and the sell-off, which is exactly what we saw yesterday morning and yesterday afternoon. Then obviously today we've seen a push back into that 110 region. 110.10. We've fallen back below 110, but we are now going to wait for the lows to be taken out to complete this lower high and lower low set before looking to potentially continue in the downward direction. It seems to be that the Swiss franc has weakened off ever so slightly, so we're seeing some potential movements surrounding that at the moment. Looking for longs, as I said before, 110.50 needs to go before we can look for any potential longs. It's completely illogical to start looking for positions at the moment until we've taken out this previous highs. So 110.50, potentially even 110.70 before we can actually look to potentially long this pair, but not really interested in anything other than the potential short below 109.75, taking it down to 108.80 again for the pair. Euro CAD, we're currently trading around the lows, which is what we want to see taken out and broken before we can look to take an entry. Obviously we've seen that push down from 150.50. Yesterday didn't give us quite the retracement we were expecting. We was probably anticipating for this move to come a little bit higher in truth. The fact is though, we've seen that push back to the downside. We've seen these lower highs created, and now we've entered a period of consolidation. It breaks back below, probably looking for entry somewhere around about 47.80 would make a lot of sense before looking obviously for potential downside movement on that pair. So there's a few things to be mindful of surrounding the euro. Euro dollar obviously presents the best opportunity for us at the moment. Although Euro Swiss, Euro CAD do both have potential entries as we move through the day. Unlikely to get one on Euro CAD, more likely to see one come into play on Euro Swiss if I'm honest. Pound dollar. Yesterday obviously we were talking about the potential to see that retracement back up as high. As this area, we've obviously come in, we found that zone and level, and we have broken down, now involved in two positions. The pushback below 139, always going to be big for the pair. That led to obviously an almost immediate sell-off, about 5 pips drawdown I think. An immediate sell-off for the pair, and we've now broken back below 138.60, which was our previous support region for this little zone. So we were looking at entries from anywhere away from both of these levels. Was going to present us with some form of potential movement. We seemingly have seen that on the lower time frames. We seem to have had our retest and a pushback down. So now we would just be looking for any potential breaks back below 138.20, and that would obviously present us with our next possible entry. Obviously we have big fundamentals out later in the week for the pound, so this probably isn't going to be a position that we are holding for too long. Potentially just going to be a quick in and out just to bank the pips. Obviously we're already running 50 pips to the good. Got in again at 38.60. So that's a couple of pips up when taking into account spread. A pushback below 38.20 would mean obviously we're about a little over 100 pips between the two positions. That might be time to take profit off the table and just let a position from 38.20 run if we can see positive price action or weak price action pushing the price back to the downside. If we don't see that and we drop 20 pips, say, and we come anywhere towards 38.40, 38.50, that would be the time to get out of the position, bank the take the little loss. With a bank profit on the way down from the other positions, and then obviously naturally just be clear, ready for Thursday's announcement. If that comes out anything close to being positive, like it was last time, I want to say it was in March, then we are highly likely to see very, very sharp and quick drives all the way back into 140. I'm not sure when the last one was, to be honest. I'd have liked to have just seen how we reacted. I would have to go back and have a look on the calendar. But we have seen big movements and big pushes away every time this has happened, so we do need to be very mindful of that. Breaks back below 138.20 though, very positive for this continuation to the downside. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Would likely lead into a push around 137 before Thursday's data, so we'll see what happens there. And then obviously if we get signs, then it might be worth flipping out of the position, potentially looking for longs or shorts depending on what price action is saying. If you want to, not condoning it, but if you wanted to have a quick run into the data announcement, then you may be able to get a risk-free position by the time that comes about. Pound Oz and Pound New Zealand, I'm pretty sure I have weakened off. We've seen the pound gain a bit of strength. Obviously there has been Aussie data overnight, which was very neutral, if I'm honest, so didn't really cause many effects to the pair. The pound is breaking back towards 194, which is what we were saying, potentially talking about yesterday with the pair. So there is a reason that we left these pairs to their own devices. For that pure reason, across the board, the pound CAD position below 70.50 at the moment doesn't overly make much sense. I would just be involved and interested in pound dollar as things stood. Euro Swiss Euro Caribbean through New Zealand dollar. We were always looking for that potential retracement. We came back up and fired in a little bit higher than was probably first anticipating, but not within the realms of being nervous. Pushed up towards 72.20 and saw rejection away. I took an entry off of that rejection. I was also involved in second entry from 71.80, and I had a third entry at 71.70, I think. But I've closed those positions down now a little bit early, as obviously we've then seen a further push into 71.45. But I was happy with the percentage that was on the table, considering it's only Tuesday. And we're always going to get the chance to enter again. If we see a push back up, which I would definitely anticipate seeing some form of a pullback into 170, into 71.70, somewhere around that region, 71.75, somewhere within this zone, these previous highs, previous lows, on a lower time frame, I'd expect to see some form of a retracement up to there at some point. Then obviously we would have the opportunity to enter again and have the potential break back below 71.40. Once we get below 71.40, we would also have the chance to enter another short position, continuing to ride that then down until 70.50, and then down further into 69.50 as our intended final target. But we're setting up nicely. We've seen the retracement. Now it's just a case of finding new entries after taking some profit personally. For those that are still in it, like I say, you can continue to ride that down now. I wouldn't have anticipated, unless NFP is poor, although there is New Zealand unemployment data, our New Zealand employment figures out over tonight. Yeah, 11:30, 11:45. So there is employment rates for the New Zealand dollar. I would anticipate that they'd be relatively decent, to be fair. Probably coming in around expected or a little bit over, considering as the country has started to open up again. So yeah, I would expect to see some positivity surrounding that. So maybe a push back to the upside that could be the catalyst for that retest to 71.70 or 71.80, that kind of area. So we just be mindful of the data that is out overnight tonight surrounding the pair. But there is definitely obviously room for this to continue further to the downside. That 71.40 region looks to be a positive area for us to potentially look for a position and to trade away from. So there are a few things that are setting up this morning for us. New Zealand Swiss, I just want to take a quick look at. That has again sold off, looking for that break below. We came very, very close to that area. I personally didn't have it alerted for some reason, so I missed that move. I will now look for a pullback and a retest and a sell limit probably away from 65.50. Look for a quick pullback up to that, but obviously that is looking positive for us. Euro Swiss is also selling off nicely, so we are looking like we're probably going to see some form of an entry surrounding these pairs at the moment. Where this pair has now broken through, if we don't see the pullback to the 50 level, then we can look to enter at 65.20, continue to ride that down into 65 or 64.20. So there's a lot of potential surrounding New Zealand dollar, New Zealand Swiss. I do want to have a quick look at dollar Swiss. Seeing the Swiss franc obviously strengthen up a little bit, so that pair weakening off. Still very much range bound though. Broken back inside the previous range. It's not really a trade there. I'm not that interested in it, to be fair. That's fine. Gold, we've broken back below the 1785 level. I would probably not look to take a position until 82 goes, but once 82 has gone, probably be pretty inclined to short gold as things stand. Let's just have a look at Aussie dollar and see how that fared with the data last night. Pushing to the 50 level. I missed this, I was still asleep, slept through the alert. And in all honesty, I hadn't paid attention. That would have been a lovely entry. Potentially a missed opportunity. Definitely still got entry potential below 77 though. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a shame. I'm a bit annoyed about that, but 77 would definitely present us with a potential entry on the pair for sure. Let's just go back to gold. Dollar CAD, we've pushed back up to close to the 20 level. 17 we've come into. I think if we were to break the 20 level with dollar CAD, I'd be pretty inclined to take a potential long back up towards 23.80. See where we go from there. This depends a lot though on trying to break back above these highs. If we fail to close but above these highs, then it's probably time to consider potential shorts back to 22.70. So we'll see how we fare and close on that. But yeah, so there's a few things to go through this morning. A couple of these that will get written up and posted. I do quite like the potential for Euro USD. I like Euro Swiss also. and New Zealand Swiss for the short two. Couple of different opportunities for entries with the pairs, but there is certainly some potential for sure. So I hope everyone has a decent day, whatever you're up to. Be sensible. Like I say, there isn't much data throughout today. However, this evening, tonight, it does get interesting with New Zealand rates, unemployment figures even. Then obviously into Wednesday, we should see some movement surrounding the dollar, at least with employment figures, non-farm employment figures. So I'll catch everyone a little bit later.